I started to play by ear. I started to play together with Magnus, who still plays the drums in EST. We learned how to play together without any teacher.
Just by yourself?
Yes, more or less by ourselves, yes. We found out how to work with rhythms, how to play some chords. And it's a little bit of a mystery how we did it, but for some reason we did it. And we came quite far. And then I got my first teacher when I was 16. I started to study some classical music, and then I learned how to read as well, which was quite late. I mean, I was 16 years old already, and it was really boring because in the beginning you have to play, you know, very simple stuff, and it was hard. But I managed, and then I also been to the music university in Stockholm, studying first 2 years as an pedagogue in improvisation, and my piano teacher was first a jazz piano teacher, and it didn't work at all. We couldn't agree about anything. I didn't like his way of playing and teaching, so I asked the headmaster that can I please change? So I got another teacher who was more classical educated, and I got some classical training instead. That was actually for 3 years, because then after those 2 years I also studied 2 years on another branch of that school. More then I was studying piano, composition, and percussion actually only. But I think my training was very much that I got from this teacher was classical training. But I always knew that I'm never going to be a classical player. I wasn't that good, and it was more or less to learn how to get some kind of command over the piano. I mean, how to play the piano. There is such a long piano tradition from Johann Sebastian Bach up to Bela Bartok and even more contemporary music, and so much to learn from them. And sometimes I think the jazz piano tradition is a bit poor in how pianists are using the piano. It has been, for some reason, it has been very much the right hand playing some lines and the left hand playing some chords, and that's it, which I find a bit boring. And therefore I'm still very, very excited about really exploring the classical field and how you can really, use the piano, and even in a context with a trio with bass and drums. Yes, in many ways, yes. I mean, since we started to play pop and rock by ear, and then some classical music, and then of course some jazz music and improvised music. But I never really invited the teacher in my improvised playing. For some reason, I didn't, I didn't want them to touch it really. I don't know why. I was a bit, I'm sure they could have taught me a lot, but for some reason I had the idea that I know where I'm going, I know what I want to do, so don't tell me about it, because I'm not interested in playing what you're going to teach me. So I don't know if it was like that, but for some reason I kept them outside, and to do classical music was perfect.
Yeah, because we've heard that you were playing something, also exercising with classical music.
Yes. I mean, I still practice a lot of classical music. I just love, I mean, as I said, from the classical piano history, there's so much music, and it's so much fun to play it. I mean, as soon as I am home, I'm playing lots of music by Mozart, Beethoven, Bach, for practicing, for learning technique, but also just for the fun, because the music is great. But as I said, it's my hobby. I'm not a professional. The music is composed by me. And then that's the first part of the process, and then when I have a couple of tunes, Don and Magnus join me and we try to play them, and I try to say not too much, because I want to hear their reaction, their spontaneous reaction to what I composed. And also it's very important that I always try to compose for Don and Magnus and myself. So sometimes, some of the music that we are playing that I composed works fine directly. Some music is not really for the trio, and we realize it quite soon. And some of the music we had to work harder on it to really find a form, and then maybe I had to start saying things because maybe we don't find the right way of right approach for that song.
Try and try.
Exactly. It's, sometimes it's you know, some of our songs that actually, we have one song called Behind the Jashmak that I mean, we don't have any hit songs, but there's one of the songs that the audience seemed to be very much aware of and ask for many times. That was a song that we struggled a lot with to find the right way of playing it. It was almost that we know, you know, didn't do it. I work a lot at home. I have in my basement, we have a little house. In my basement I have the piano, I have a computer and stuff, but basically, yeah, I'm practicing and composing by the piano or at the piano, or just being on tour with a notebook or, you know, writing notes like this.
You play other instruments?
Yes, I do. I mean, I know how. I think it's not that complex. If you understand how it works with music, then you can play more or less any instrument. I mean, you know how it works. So I mean, I can play guitar, bass, drums, little saxophone, flute, but just a little bit. I mean, I know how the instrument works, and then I can, you know, write for it, or compose for it, or maybe I can play a little bit, but. But nothing. I mean, before I was a little bit like, no, I'm gonna really be a bass player as well, and I was practicing bass. But all that is gone now. I'm a piano player, and I know how the other instrument works, but I don't practice them anymore.
The instruments are extensions of the music.
I think so. Yeah. If you understand music, you can play more or less anything. But what I do, I play guitar and bass with my son, or with my sons, because they play. My youngest son, Noah, he's playing drums. Quite talented. So we have some serious jam sessions playing rock and roll, and then I used to play the bass, and now we bought a guitar because he wanted to have a guitar with a real svaj. I don't know what you call it, but no, it's not a wah-wah. It's the arm sitting on the guitar where you can bend the notes.
Yeah.
So I'm using that one with lots of distortion.
Use it on the piano.
Oh, I do that as well, yes. Maybe it's, I mean, I was a guitar player. You know, when I told you about when I started to play, I was playing piano, I was playing lots of instruments, and I didn't really decide where to go. I guess I always loved the piano, but I was playing guitar and bass at the same time, so I wasn't sure really. So maybe it's the guitar influences that still are there. At the moment, it's without question, it's classic. Yeah, shall we? It's not jazz music. It's classical music, and for the moment, it's Johann Sebastian Bach. That is favorite of mine. I listen a lot to recordings, and I love very much Glenn Gold's way of playing his music. I think his interpretation of that music is just amazing. I mean, and if you also take into consideration that music was composed 1600 something, sometimes I have the feeling that nothing happened after it. I mean, I don't know what he did. I mean, he was beyond his time. I mean, I don't know how people reacted to his music, but it's just amazing, I think. In general, I don't like to define music, because I think music exists just because you shouldn't try to put words on it. Music is something that you can't express with words. You can't talk about the music. Of course, you can talk about the music, but if, like for instance, you never heard music and I try to say something, describe music for you, you probably get some idea, but then suddenly when you hear music, it will be something completely different. That's at least my philosophy about it. I think music is a kind of a universe in itself that is wordless in that sense. It's something that you can experience with other parts, not really with your logical mind. You can be aware of it in so many other. Your body might feel it, or your heart, or it goes somewhere else. You know, there is this story, totally different thing, but there's a story in the Bible about Jericho's walls. Nobody could get through it. All the warriors were trying to go into the city, but they couldn't destroy those walls. They were just too strong. And then suddenly there was a musician coming and playing, and the walls just fell. And suddenly they can go in. And I think that's a very nice picture or image of us as human beings. I mean, we can have very hard shell. You know, people try to reach. There are, for instance, some kids that they are very closed. They don't. You can't communicate with them. But then suddenly with music, you can reach them. With music, you can get in touch with them. So music can really go through your walls or your shells, I think. And in that sense, I don't know how to describe music. It's a universe in itself. It's a force. The title is actually
something strange, yeah?
Yeah, it's Magnus' work, the drummer, and he's a poet in that sense. I have no idea regarding titles. For me, when I compose music, it's C minor, slow, or C minor fast, like, you know, the old composers used to do. But Magnus has great fantasy in that sense, and coming up with all those titles that we always discuss a lot. But
like when God created the coffee break.
Exactly, for instance.